Welcome back to another of our tutorials on the University of Sports International School-Based Assessments for Information Technology. Today we're going to be looking at the database aspect of our school-based assessment. Now, you have created your spreadsheet and we want to now integrate data from our spreadsheet into our database. Now, let's go on over to what we are required to do in our database. Our database management system asks us to perform two tasks. That's task A and task B. Now, task A asks us to design, create, and populate tables. Now, there are three tables that you're being asked to create. One is called school, that's your school data table. Another one is for your event, that's your event data table. And number three, for your athletes. So you want to create a table for your athletes as well. So let's look at what we need to do first. Now, the first thing you need to know is what are the field names that I will need for my database table. Good. And so the field names are listed here. And for your school data, you want to have school ID, school name, school code, school address, and that must be done in street, town, and parish. You want your principal's name, which should be done in first and last name, the principal's contact number, the coach's name, the fees the school paid, and the date when they were registered. For table number 2, and that's your event data, you want your athlete ID, your events, the position that the athlete ran, the time that the athlete ran. So these are data that will be in your event table. And finally, your athletes data table. Your athletes data table will have fields such as your athlete ID, the name of the athlete, which is first and last name, the date of birth of the athlete's gender, and the school code from which the athlete comes. You are also being asked to establish relationships, right, to ensure that your queries, when you get to them, will operate in the correct way. You are also asked to ensure that each field has the appropriate description and field types. Now, so here we want to go to our database software. So we want to open a new database, and for this purpose we're going to be using a brand new database, considering that we had done before. So here I'm going to select blank database. Now you will notice that a file name starting with database will appear here. However, we don't want our database to be called database 2. We want to give it our own name, and we want to say USI Database, and you want to attach your name to ensure that you can remember, or somebody going into your file will know that, hey, this is my database. You want to select, this icon allows you to select where you want your database to be stored. If you select it, it will navigate to your Explorer window. Now I want my document to be stored in my documents folder. You also have the option of selecting other drives that you want it. For example, if you have a thumb drive, you could select the thumb drive you want to store it on. I want it to be stored in documents, so I'm going to select where I want it to be stored. And I want it to be stored in a new folder called USI Documents. So So I'm going to select USI documents, and I'm going to store my database in. So now it tells me that my database is not, it gives me the path for my database, right? So I now need to select create, and I have a blank database that I'm going to be working with. And you notice the name of my database appears in the top of the window. Now, let's manipulate our data that we want to go into our database. Here, I want to start with my athlete data. So I'm going to work with my athlete data sheet first, because it's okay for you to start wherever. You don't have to start at table number 1 or table number 2. Good? As long as you complete all 3 tables. So I want to start with my athlete data because that takes more work than the others. So here I want to insert a new sheet, and I want to call that new sheet database, because I want to remember that this sheet, whatever data is on this sheet, is going to be represented in my database. So I'm going to go on over to my athlete data, and I'm going to copy my athlete data. I could have taken a shortcut and link sheets, but I want to copy my data and I want to paste my data. Let me extend this column so that it is showing. Now, so here I have some of my data already. Good. Now, you'll notice that there are only some field names that appear in this database that is required appear in your spreadsheet that is required for your database. Good. And so let's go through. So we have our athlete first and last name, date of birth, gender, school code. We have the event, the position, and the time run. However, we do not have a field that says athlete ID. So we want to insert a field that says athlete ID, and I'm just going to make it easy and copy and paste it from here. Okay. So you want to insert a column. So I want to insert a column. Let me do this again. So I want to copy my athlete ID, and I want to paste it here. So I have my label for my, let me just fix that up a little. So I have my athlete ID. Let me put some border around it to make it look uniform. Good. So my first athlete ID. So what do I need to create an athlete ID? You want to use the initial of the first name, the initial of the last name, plus 2 digits to create your athlete ID. So here I'm gonna say CA. So that represents what is required. The initial of the first name, the initial of the last name, plus 2 digits. Let me go again. Initial, that's a Cashane, starts with a K. Coke starts with a C, and I give it a number. And I have my ID. Okay. So now, let me save just to make sure that I don't lose that information. You want to ensure that your documents are stored. The data type of your documents are in the right format before we move on over. Now, there are 2 methods to exporting this data to database. I'm going to look at the easiest one first. Well, that's the one I find the easiest first. So I'm just going to select all the information here. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go on over to my database screen. Let me close this table here, and I'm going to right click in my navigation pane, and I'm going to say paste. Now, this dialog box asks me to make a decision. It says, does the first row of your data contain column headings? Yes, they do. So I'll select yes. All objects were imported successfully. Great. So now I have a copy of my database, and all my data is in my database. So this is the easiest method of doing your database. So now this database table can now be used to create two of your tables. So it can be used to create your athlete table because it has all the information that is required for your athlete table. It can also be used to create your event table. Good. So let us use this one database to create our event table and our athlete data table. Good. So we're going to close here. So we want to make a copy of it because we want to make changes. So we're going to make a copy, and we're going to call it copy. We're going to call this one event data. So we're going to call that one event data. And we're going to make another copy, and we're going to call that one athlete data. So now we can modify the data table as we want. So let me start with our event data. Now our event data, for our event data, we're asked to put in the athlete's ID, event, position, and time run only. So we just need these 4 fields only. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to our design view, and we're going to delete all the data that we don't want. Remember, we want the athlete ID, we want the event, we want the time run, and we want the position only. So all of this information is unnecessary. Good. So we want to delete all of those rows. Do you want to? Yes. Good. So we have our 4 fields that we're asked to create of athlete ID, the event, the position, and the time run. That is what we now have for our database. Good. We want our athlete data. So let's look at data type. Our athlete ID is text because we have 2 digits and 2 letters, right? So that is text. However, we only need a field size. So here our field size only needs to be 4. We have 2 digits for first and last name and 2 numbers. So that makes our field size 4. Our event data, if you notice our event, the longest event that we have is our 1500 meter, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. So we want to limit, we want to ensure that you don't enter more figures than is necessary. So we want to say, so that's 5 characters, right? And the time run, we can give it any figure, that's okay. The position remains number, and double is quite okay. Now for our description, we just need to tell our user what is being stored in this field, and we're saying an ID, an identification number for our athletes containing initials and 2 digits, and that's good. Our event is events athlete participated in. Time run by athlete. We're going to say placement of athletes in the event run. And we have our field names the data type, and our descriptions. And we want to save. Remember, it's gonna give you this validation message, so it's okay. And we save, and we go back to our data sheet, and we only have the data that is required of us to have. So we have our athlete ID, our events, time run, and our position, and the event table is complete. Okay, so let's look now at our other table, which is our athlete data table. Now for our athlete data table, we are required to have the athlete ID, athlete name, date of birth, gender, and the school code. So let's go back to our database and see which fields we need to eliminate. So we're going to go back to our design view. Remember, you can click on this arrow and select design view, or you just click on the design view icon and you are good. Right, so we want the athlete ID, the athlete first and last name, the athlete's date of birth, the athlete's gender, and the school code of the athlete. So these items are no longer required in this athlete table. So we're going to right click on our mouse, and let me do this again so you can see. I place my arrow, my pointer here, hold on my mouse, and select all the data that I don't want. I right click my mouse and I select delete rows, and it checks to make sure that I really want to delete, and I say yes, and it's deleted. Now you do remember what data we use. So we remember our field name was 4, so we need to make it 4. This can be any number, so we're gonna make that 25. We're gonna make that 25. Date of birth is date and time, that's good. Gender, we want to make it 1 because we only want an M or an F. And school code, remember you have a school code. Let me go back to this database table just to show you. So our school code has the initial of the schools, plus 2 digits. So it has, so we're gonna make that about, let's make it 6. So the school code now becomes 6. And we have our description, and I want to just borrow some of the description that I have in my other table, considering we're using the same field, right? So I want to borrow that. So I want to just say first name, I want to say surname of athletes, date of birth, I want to say gender, and represents the school code. And we're done. And you want to make sure that you save your data. When I go back to my data sheets, all I should see are the 6 fields that I want, which is athlete ID, athlete's first name, athlete's last name, athlete's date of birth. And you'll notice that because I selected a field size of 1 for gender, it now becomes M and F and not female and male. And I now have my school code. So this is it for our event data table and our athlete data table. Now let's look on our school's data table. Now we want to go back to our spreadsheet, and I want to go to the keys sheet for this data. So I want to just take this data here. We don't need all of this data, but we can always remove what we don't want when we get there. So I'm going to just take all of this data, I'm going to copy. So I'm going to go back to my database screen, and I'm going to right click in my navigation pane, and I'm going to select paste. It will ask me the question again. Does the first row of your data contains headings? Yes. All objects were imported successfully. So now first thing we want to do is we want to rename this table. So we're going to right click on key sheet. We're going to hit rename, and I'm going to call it school data. We're going to open. So we need to go back to our design view, because there are some things that we do not need in this table. And so let's go back to our problem statement. Here, so all we want is school ID, the name of the school, we want school code, the address, the principal's name, the contact number, the coach's name, the fees are there, the registration date is there, but all of this information we will need to put in on our own, right? So let's see what we don't want in that database. So we want the school, we don't want the number of entries, we want the registration date, we don't want the registration status, we don't want the entry, and we don't want the amount to you. So we're going to delete this one. So we're going to say yes. We're going to delete registration status because we don't want that. We don't want initial entry, so we're going to delete that. And we do not want, so late fee is what we don't want. So we're going to delete late fee. But there are stuff here that we want that we do not have, right? For example, we want so this should be school's name. So we want the school code. We want to have the title for our principal. Principal's first name. Print last name. We want the school address. We want the coach's name. Let me see what else I'm leaving out. So we want the principal's first name and contact number. So we need a contact number. So we also want a contact number for our school. Now we can adjust these placements. So for example, your school name, we want our school code to be beside our school name. So I'm going to hold down the mouse and pull it up so we get it. We can move it up as much as we want. So I'm going to select these three here, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put it after that. So we have our school name, school code, Prince's name, Prince's last name, street, town, parish, registration date, amount due. We want our title to come before our principal's name, and we want our contact number to come after the parish, and our coach's name can come after the principal's last name. So we have adjusted to make sure that we have what we want on our field definitions. We want to change up some of these. Our school code, if you remember, it was 6. Title, you don't need any more than 4 for your title. First name 25, last name can be 25 as well, or coach's name 25, street, town, parish. So we want to give all of these 25 characters only. Our contact number should be 8. Registration and amount due is okay. And of course, you know our description. So it's name of school, of athlete, and we had information on our school code, so we can use that. So not in this table, or athlete table. We have our school code, so we want to see here, we want to borrow this information. Title of principal, name of principal, name of coach, and we're gonna say address of school, and telephone number, date of registration, and the amount of fees collected per school. Good. We want to save. Make sure you save at intervals to ensure that your data is not lost. So here we have all the data for our school table. So we have our school name, school code, title, principal's first name, principal's last name, the coach's name, the street the school is situated on, the town, and of course the parish from which the school hails, our contact number, which is our telephone number, registration date, and the amount of money that the school had to pay. And we need to ensure that we save at all times, and so we have our data. So we have our 3 tables now ready for us. So this is our athlete data table. Here it says 1 of 39 records, so there are 39 records in this table. For the school data, we have 5 records, and for our event data, we also should have 39, so we have 39 records in our event data. So this is how you can complete your 3 tables in your database. So here we can now do the other necessary stuff that we are asked to do in our database. So we have created our 3 tables, that's school data, event data, and athlete data. We have also done our field descriptions and properties. In our next lesson, we are going to look at creating relationships in our database. So join us again next time when we look at creating relationships